Hey everyone. Okay, I need to tell you something. Something I've never publicly shared before, but which was literally the most hilarious and mortifying chapter of my life. I spent 6 months working as a maintenance cleaner for the London Eye, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why I can never hear phrases like private moment, steaming up, or condensation issues without blushing furiously. And before I dive into this absolutely bonkers British chaos, if you're not already subscribed, click that subscribe button right now, smash that like button because this story is completely insane, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. Okay, let's start with how I accidentally got the most awkward job in London tourism. So there I was, 28 years old, American expat living in London after following my then boyfriend across the Atlantic, only for him to dump me 3 months later, working two part-time jobs that barely covered my rent in a dodgy flat in Brixton, and scrolling through job sites at 2 a.m. because jet lag was still destroying me even after 6 months. I see this posting. Overnight maintenance cleaner, London Eye. Deep clean passenger pods between closing and opening. Must be detail-oriented. £1,800 a month. £1,800 for cleaning? At night when I'm awake anyway? I applied without thinking twice. The interview was with this very prim and proper British woman named Margaret, probably in her 50s, who explained that the London Eye has 32 sealed glass pods that each hold up to 25 people. And between the last rotation at 8 p.m. and the first at 9 a.m., they all need to be thoroughly cleaned. She said, "The job is quite straightforward. You clean the glass, the floors, the benches, remove any rubbish, check for damage. The challenging part is working at height while the wheel is stationary, and of course, dealing with what people leave behind." I asked what she meant by that. She smiled tightly. "People treat the pods as private spaces. They leave evidence of that." I nodded, thinking like food wrappers and drink spills. Oh, how naive I was. My first night, I show up at 9 p.m. in my new uniform, meet my supervisor Jake, this cheerful Cockney guy in his 40s who's been doing this for years. He takes me up into the first pod, and immediately I see what Margaret meant by evidence. There are fingerprints all over the glass, which makes sense, people touch windows. But as we move through the pods, I realize the fingerprints are often in very specific patterns. Handprints at shoulder height, palm prints with fingers splayed. And then, in one pod, Jake points to the glass and says, "See that fog pattern? That's from heavy breathing. And those marks? That's where someone was pressed against the glass." I look closer and there's a clear outline of a body on the condensation-smeared window. I turn to Jake like, "Are you telling me people are—"
He cuts me off. "Oh yeah, all the time. Couples get in these pods, it's romantic, it's London lit up below them, they've got 30 minutes of relative privacy, and they forget themselves." I ask how often this happens. He laughs. "Every single night, there's at least 2 or 3 pods that are clearly steamed up from activity. Your job is to clean it without judging." I stand there realizing I've signed up to clean the aftermath of people's romantic moments 30 meters in the air over the Thames. The first few nights, I develop a system. I can identify which pods were busy immediately because the glass has that telltale fog pattern that regular tourists don't create. The benches are often displaced. Sometimes there are items left behind that I don't even want to describe. Jake teaches me the protocol: gloves, disinfectant, and complete discretion. He also teaches me the dark humor required to survive this job. "If you don't laugh about it, you'll cry about it," he says while cleaning a pod that clearly hosted something intense. Week 2, and I've started categorizing the types of evidence I find. There's first date excitement, which is usually just handprints and light fogging. There's anniversary celebration, which involves more extensive steaming and sometimes champagne bottles. There's proposal pod, which I can identify by the rose petals. And then there's we thought we were alone, which is, well, that's when I need extra disinfectant. Jake and I have a running joke about which pods were the winners each night. Pod 13 is consistently the worst, and we've decided it has some kind of romantic vortex energy. But the real awkwardness starts when I realize people sometimes stay in the pods longer than they should. One night, I'm about to start cleaning pod 7 when I hear voices inside. It's 10 p.m. The eye has been closed for 2 hours, but there are definitely people in there. I radio Jake, pod 7 has occupants? He sighs, yeah, happens sometimes. Couples hide in the toilets at closing, wait till we stop the wheel, then sneak into a pod thinking they'll have it all night. Go knock and tell them they need to leave. I climb up, knock on the pod door, and say loudly, "Maintenance, you need to exit the pod." There's scrambling, whispered cursing, and then the door opens to reveal 2 very disheveled people in their 30s, clearly British, clearly mortified. The woman is trying to fix her hair, the man is tucking in his shirt. I maintain the most professional face possible. The eye is closed. You need to leave immediately. They apologize profusely in posh accents, something about losing track of time and didn't realize, and they hurry out. Once they're gone, I look at the pod and it's a disaster. I radio Jake, pod 7 was very occupied. His response, gloves and disinfectant, love. Welcome to the job. Week 3, Jake tells me about the wall of shame.
It's not an actual wall. It's a group chat among the maintenance staff where we share the weirdest things we find. Someone once found a full meal from Wagamama. Someone found a wedding bouquet. Someone found items that suggest a level of planning that's honestly impressive. Jake adds photos of particularly egregious messes with captions like, Pod 13 strikes again, or someone really enjoyed the view tonight. It's become a coping mechanism for dealing with the absurdity of our job. Week 4 brings a new dimension. I start recognizing patterns of the same couples coming back. The London Eye doesn't have cameras inside the pods for privacy reasons, but I can tell when the same couple returns because they leave the same signature. There's one couple who always leaves rose petals, another who always leaves champagne, one who apparently enjoys using the entire space because evidence is found on every surface. Jake says some couples treat specific pods like their spot and return for anniversaries. It's weirdly romantic in the most absolutely bizarre way. But then comes the incident that haunts me. I'm cleaning pod 19 around midnight when I find something that makes me freeze. A phone. Not just any phone, but an iPhone in a sparkly case with a little charm that says Bachelorette Sophie. It's password protected, but the lock screen shows missed calls from Mom and Bride Tribe. I bring it to Jake. He says, "Oh, bloody hell. This is from the bachelorette party that was here earlier. They were enthusiastic. We have to turn it into Lost and Found, which operates during day hours, so I put it in a plastic bag with a note about where I found it." 2 days later, Margaret calls me into her office. Apparently, Sophie came back for her phone, and when told where it was found and when, she went bright red and said nothing. Margaret looks at me very seriously. "I trust you were professional and discreet." I confirm I was. She nods. Good, because what happens in the pods stays in the pods. That's our unofficial motto. I realize I'm part of a conspiracy of silence protecting the dignity of London's romantic adventurers. Week 6, and I've become immune to surprise. I've seen it all. I've cleaned things I didn't know needed cleaning. I've developed philosophical acceptance of human nature. Jake and I discussed this one night while cleaning back-to-back pods. "You know what I've learned from this job?" he says. "People are people everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're in a fancy capsule over London or a car park in Croydon. Human nature is human nature." It's oddly profound for a conversation happening while scrubbing condensation off glass. But then comes the night that tests my professional limits. I'm cleaning pod 4 when I find a note, a handwritten note left on the bench. It reads, "To whoever cleans this pod, sorry about the mess. Got engaged here tonight. Couldn't help ourselves. Here's £50 for your trouble." There's actually £50 taped to the note. I'm standing there with this money, this note, and evidence of their celebration all around me, and I'm just touched. These people took the time to acknowledge that someone has to clean up after their special moment. I split the money with Jake, and we both agree that's the most considerate thing anyone has ever done. Week 8 brings media attention in the weirdest way. A journalist from The Sun writes an article about London's most romantic spots and interviews London Eye staff.
Someone, not me, mentions that the pods are very popular with couples who want privacy, and the article runs with it, calling the London Eye London's love capsules and making suggestive jokes about reaching new heights and a revolving door of romance. The article kind of goes viral, and suddenly we're getting more couples who specifically want that romantic experience. Jake and I just look at each other like, great, more work for us. The management decides to lean into it. They create a romance package with champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries for couples who book private capsules. Margaret very pointedly tells all maintenance staff that we'll need to be extra thorough in our cleaning. Jake mutters, as if we weren't already. The first night after the romance package launches, 3 pods need deep cleaning. It's a record. And before I finish this story, I really need to ask you guys, have you ever had a job where you had to clean up after other people's romantic moments? Or worked somewhere where you saw way more than you ever wanted to see? Drop your stories in the comments, because I need to know I'm not the only one. And if you have friends with awkward job stories, tag them. Week 10, something shifts for me. I'm cleaning pod 26, which has the typical evidence of a couple's evening, when I find something else. A small box, jewelry box sized. I open it carefully, and inside is a note that says, "For whoever finds this, I was going to propose here tonight, but she said no. I left the ring in my pocket, but I wrote this note because I needed to tell someone. The view is beautiful, even when your heart is broken. Thanks for cleaning up. I tried not to make too much mess." There's no ring, just the note. I sit there in this pod, surrounded by cleaning supplies, reading this stranger's heartbreak, and I cry. I cry for this person I'll never meet, for their courage and their pain, for the fact that they still thought to be considerate to the cleaning staff. I tell Jake about it later, and he's quiet for a moment. Then he says, "That's the thing about this job. We see the aftermath of people's best and worst nights. We're invisible witnesses to all these human moments. It's weird and gross sometimes, but it's also kind of special." I realize he's right. I've been so focused on the awkwardness that I missed that I'm literally seeing the evidence of human emotion, vulnerability, and connection.
People come to the London Eye for moments that matter to them, and I'm the one who makes sure it's ready for the next person's moment. My last month, I've decided 6 months is enough. I've saved money, I've figured out what I actually want to do in London, work in theater production, which is also messy but in different ways, and I'm ready to have a job where I don't know intimate details about strangers' lives. My final night, Jake works with me, and as we clean the last pod at 6 a.m. watching sunrise over London, he says, "You were a good cleaner. Most Americans don't last 2 weeks, too squeamish." I take it as the highest compliment. What did I learn? First, humans are predictably unpredictable, especially in romantic situations. Second, every job, no matter how unglamorous, teaches you something about human nature. Third, maintaining discretion about what you witness is actually a form of kindness. Fourth, British people are simultaneously very proper and very willing to get frisky in a glass capsule over the Thames. Fifth, sometimes the weirdest jobs give you the best stories and perspective on life. I also learned about resilience. I learned I can handle awkward situations with humor instead of judgment. I learned that sometimes caring for spaces where important moments happen is its own form of meaningful work, even if you're just the one cleaning up after. And I learned that London, with all its grandeur and tourism, is ultimately just a city full of people trying to connect, love, and create memories, even if that means leaving condensation patterns on glass. Today, a year later, I work in theater doing set design and cleanup, which is still messy but in more artistic ways. But people who know about my London Eye days still make jokes. Friends visiting London always want to ride the Eye, and they always ask, "Which pod is the romantic one?" I tell them, all of them apparently, every single one. When dates ask about the weirdest job I've had, this story either makes them laugh or makes them never want to ride the London Eye again.
It's a good filter, actually. My family back in the US thinks it's hilarious. My mom tells everyone, my daughter cleaned the London Eye and has stories. She's not wrong. At parties, when conversation lags, I can always drop the I used to clean the London Eye, and people always want to know more. It's become my claim to fame in weird expat circles. And you know what? I don't regret it. Despite the awkwardness, the gross moments, and the things I can never unsee, that job was unforgettable. It was uniquely bizarre. It gave me perspective and humility and some truly incredible stories. How many people can say they intimately know the romantic habits of London Eye visitors? Sometimes I walk past the London Eye now, see it slowly rotating with all those people inside having their moments, and I smile. Because I know what's waiting for someone at 9 p.m. when those pods stop rotating.
Someone with gloves, disinfectant, and a sense of humor about human nature, and I hope they're handling it with the same weird grace that Jake taught me. So that's it, everyone. My completely true, only slightly exaggerated story of how I spent 6 months cleaning the London Eye and learned way more about human romantic behavior than I ever wanted to know. If you enjoyed this journey through British tourism's most intimate side, absolutely demolish that like button, share this with your friends who need to hear about bizarre jobs, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got more insane stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you're ever in a London Eye pod, someone has to clean it after you. So maybe, just maybe, keep things a little less steamy. See you in the next one.